Previously on.
Previously.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on.
Previously on the recap sequence.
Hey folks, welcome to the recap sequence. We are back, and it has been a little while.
Lengthy period, yes.
I'll apologize. I caught COVID, I got a lung infection, and I kept telling Ryan to go away. So we did not get to do our show for the entire month of September.
Nope.
So it's good to be back in the chairs, and what a great way to get things going again. With a great guest, Aaron Reynolds is joining us tonight, and he is the author of Effin Birds, among other effin stuff, which we will get to. And we had the pleasure of meeting Aaron back in August at Freddie Beach Fan Fest. It was a hot day at Freddie Beach Fan Fest. Aaron, how are you, by the way?
I'm doing
Welcome
great.
to our show.
And I gotta say, I've never done a panel in a room with a dirt floor before, and so I will forever remember Freddie Beach Fan Fest for that first.
They parade horses and livestock in there, and
like, this is a cow palace.
Yes, it is.
Not to give Fredericton a small town kind of bum rap or anything, but I think it definitely came across that way. If you haven't been to Fredericton for something, particularly Metro, that was not the way to show it off. So Capitol Exhibit Center is great for a great many things. Panels, maybe not as much, but yeah, that was the first time I think we had ever covered a panel with a dirt floor. I'd been in there before as a kid, petting animals, but like I'd never ever done anything professional there.
Do you know what was amazing about it? Was when all those kids with lightsabers ran out onto the dirt floor, lightsaber battles, and they looked like they're really on some other, dirt floor planet. So that was, I got out my phone and I was like, oh, slow motion mode. Let's film this.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and background a little bit.
Most cons you're dealing with, that hotel carpet, right? So it looks very much not like another world. So yeah, kind of cool, I guess. Yeah. Find the silver lining on that one. That
absolutely.
Because otherwise, it was 40 degrees inside the event. So we're glad everybody made it. By the way.
Yeah, and this was your second time to Fredericton, right?
Yes, because I did the previous incarnation of this show when it was in the Fredericton
Inn. So Big Country Comic Expo.
Yeah. Justin's show, yeah.
That's right. And then it was particularly cold and windy because it was the end of November. It was at the top of Regent Street, like 90-kilometer-an-hour winds. And
I swear, Aaron, if you actually come here like in June, July, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Guys,
take your word for it. I'll take it. I'll schedule the show then. Why?
Just add it on your weather app every once in a while and just take a look. You'll see it. It happens every once in a while. Anyway, we're really glad to have you on. We got to talk a little bit on the floor, but
how was the con overall for you? Because you seemed quite busy when on Saturday and Sunday as well.
Yeah, I was having a great time. I had so I want to say this in the best way, because I was expecting that this was going to be like one of my lowest shows of the year in terms of revenue. And that's not a knock on Fredericton or anything like that. It's literally like the attendance number for the show told me that it was going to be probably the lowest number of the year, even if it overachieved. And guess what? It was the third lowest number of the year. Your show beats major metropolitan cities that should feel bad about it. So
perfect.
That was
I like it.
It was a real big overachieve for the for the local population, like for how many people they managed to get out, for people being excited to be there. We had great attendance at my panel. It was great. I could not have asked for more from this show.
Well, I'll give it this. So, I mean, and this was the third sort of iteration of Freddie Beach, from Big Country to Freddie Beach, the first one, and then the second one. Fredericton really does enjoy having something like this in Fredericton. So, they work their butts off to make it happen. So good on them. Again, and there were some adverse, kind of things going on with the weather and the lack of moving air in there. I noticed the heat. Can you guys tell? I noticed the heat. This is probably one of the things that sticks out the most.
It was hot. I've only done one show hotter than that, and that was Fan Expo Dallas when the air conditioning broke in their center. And I was wearing I like baseball stuff, as you can tell from this hat and the conversation we had before we started the show.
Yeah.
But I like to do local pandering, and really what that means is I like a tax deductible reason to go see a ball game in a city that I'm visiting. And then when I'm there, I usually grab a jersey, and I usually get game worn jerseys from people who are not superstars, because those are cheaper than the replicas that they sell in the shop, but they're better jerseys because they're the on the field jerseys.
Right.
And so I got one in at a Rangers game. It was I think it cost me like $80 for the jersey, and the replica's like 300,
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It was worn on the field, jersey, and all you have to know is how to read the sizing tags on them, so like because they're all tailored, so you got to find somebody who's your body
Yeah.
shape. And so I sadly buy a lot of first base coach jerseys or backup catcher jerseys.
Right.
Anyways, so it had this hologram that sits right in the middle of the numbers, that you punch in the number on the website, or you scan the QR code, and it tells you what game, what player wore this in, and that's your authentication. It was so hot at that show that one time I stood up and the hologram was stuck to the chair. I had
No way.
off of the jersey onto the chair, and then it sealed itself to the chair. So
Wow.
my jersey's no longer authenticatable.
Oh, God. So you didn't get a chance to check it then, or like to authenticate it at all?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It does, like I'm not buying. I was at a Mets game very recently, and I could have bought like Pete Alonso's jersey for $6,000, but I got Tony Tarasco, the first base coach's jersey, for $110.
Nice.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's kind of my speed. And so, like, is anybody going to be really like, oh, that you got the first base coach's jersey from that specific game? I'm like, nobody cares.
It's look, it's still worth more than any jersey I'll wear. So
Maybe.
he's doing bad. He's doing all right, Tony. Tony, whatever his
Tony
name is.
Trask. He's not even with them anymore. That's
so you had sandwiched Fredericton in between. I think you had just come off Comic-Con in San Diego, and you were getting ready after that to go to Fan Expo in Toronto.
Yes. And then immediately the weekend after that, Dragon Con.
Oh my God.
Wow. I remember you mentioning Dragon Con because I'm a big Star Trek nerd, and Dragon Con has a bit of a Star Trek spin to it, or they used to anyway. I don't know if
they have a real strong Star Trek track. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bunch of Trek people were there.
So are you done now for the year?
I have 2 more shows. I have a show in Cincinnati, October 18th, I think. 18th. 20th, 18th, I think that's right. It's at whatever the Friday, Saturday, Sunday is around the 18th of October. And then that's the Cincinnati Comics and Pop Culture Expo. And then I have Big Apple Comic Con in New York, which is a 1-day show in the New Yorker Hotel Ballroom.
Really?
Weird one, November 23rd. But like, you know what? That's a trip to New York. And,
hey, why not?
Someone else is flying you in and putting you in that hotel. All you got to do is show up and be nice and sign things. Like, I'm happy to do it. I'm actually really interested to see if Freddie Beach can outperform a show in New York. That'll be you
have to let us know then, because that would be hilarious.
Wow.
Actually, it was really funny when we were there. Excuse me. On the Saturday, we were there for Sammy Francis's panel, and behind us there was a guy who was wearing a Deadpool hoodie, and he just bought a Deadpool Wolverine T-shirt for the movie. And the next day on the Sunday, I went back to the show and I was talking to Aaron, but while I was waiting, that same couple was there, and they had just bought 2 Eat Fart shirts from him. Right before that. So I just thought that was fantastic. So, I mean, look, Aaron, let's dive into it. How did this all come about? I mean, I'm holding it here. Effin Birds.
Yes.
I picked it up. It's absolutely hilarious.
Thank you.
Where did this all come from?
Well, so let's see. There's a lot of different questions to answer in that question. I had realized in around 2014, 2015 that I needed to be doing stuff for myself again. I'd been successful creatively. I'd gone to art school. I ended up in a series of weird jobs, but they were arts jobs until they weren't. And it was the thing is when I took that job working at Apple that I talked about when we were talking about stuff in the pre thing. I took that job because I had just had like my first son had just been born, and I was like, oh, I need like a regular paycheck. I can't. I'm not built for the freelance insecurity, of money thing. And so I took a job with a big corporation and I worked there for 11 years. And about halfway through it, I started to get really itchy because I wasn't making anything for me. And that sort of coincided with the real rise of social media. And so it was very easy for me to make a dumb thing and roll it out onto the internet and see if anybody liked it. And every once in a while, I would make a dumb thing that people really liked. And at one point, I started getting frustrated with my job. And so I was like, well, what if I really put in the effort to make one of these that could pay the bills? And so I went and I looked at all my past projects and I did the big sheet of what went right and what went wrong, what made it successful, what kept it from greater success, what keeps me from making money on it. And I came out with essentially the template for what would be Effin Birds. And in parallel, I had been asked by a big media corporation for pitches for their social media comedy handle because they were really striking out on social media. They weren't funny on social media. They were getting a lot of guff for being not very funny, despite being a legendary comedy brand. And so they asked me for pitches, and I gave them a bunch of pitches, including essentially what would become Effin Birds. And they hated them all, but they especially hated that pitch. And I was
Really?
like, oh, these guys. Well, first I felt bad. First I felt really, really bad because I wanted to work with them, and I saw that as my ticket to like leaving this other job. And I was just like, oh, so mad. And then I was like, oh, well, wait, they are bad at this. Like, look,
Yeah.
they're bad at it. That's why
Wait a
they're
sec.
fighting me. Why don't I just do it myself and show them that they're wrong and then make them look at the rest of my list of pitches again and pick one of them? And that was the plan. And so that's why I spitefully did Effin Birds the best I could. I just was like, okay, everything about this is going to be top notch. And then like within 2 weeks, it was more popular than their whole brand.
Huh.
And like today, I think it's 50 something times more popular than their brand on social media.
Wow.
I
Like, wow.
love your dedication in there when you open it up. It's the best way to start it, saying, to my mother-in-law who does not believe that this is an acceptable way to make a living.
And like, so first of all, one, that's 100% true. Two, in her defense, a little bit, she used to have a son-in-law that worked for the world's biggest and most stable corporation, and he quit that job to make a bird cartoon.
Right.
So, like, I understand where, like, in the same way that I have that stress about when I did freelance, like I had that stress about money, she had a lot of stress about money on my behalf, and I just don't think she understood like the earning power of a bird cartoon on the internet, which I
Well,
still
yeah.
am flummoxed by, but I definitely like when we recently had to redo the electrical for the house, and she was super stressed out because she was like, well, was this much money? How could you afford it? You don't work for Apple anymore. I was like, I couldn't afford it when I worked at Apple. I can afford it now because I have bird money.
Right.
Like that's
I have bird money.
which is weird, which is really weird to say. But I mean, it's not like I'm not a millionaire or anything. It's just like a real solid living, a really surprisingly solid living from bird cartoons.
Were you like a bird enthusiast of any kind, or why? Like they're great. They're great renditions of birds. Like we have the John Audubon Society. We have one of the original books here at our Legislative Assembly. You can flip through all kinds of less profane pictures of birds. But like these are great drawings. By the way, like this is like the artistic part of it is as brilliant as the sort of the rest, right? The language and the like it's as what made you settle on birds?
Well, I think the thing about birds was that they really easily map to negative human emotions when you look at their beak and eyes. And I hadn't picked that up until I got a spam email that had this pissed off looking owl in it. And I opened it. I was cleaning out my junk mail folder and I saw this owl and I was like, oh, this is the thing. This is the thing right here. And so like it's kind of like a remarkable coincidence and also like a lesson about like, yeah, you should probably open your spam sometimes.
But you realize that your choices for these, I read these and I'm like, these are a lot of people that I've seen in the workplace.
Oh
And
yes.
it's
Oh,
well, with the
sure.
exception of the crab. I did want to ask you about that. The crab is in there right here.
But yeah, the crab
And
the
it's
book asshole. I don't have time to explain.
Yeah.
yes.
That was born out of uh, I make a lot of jokes when people like a thing on the internet, they tend to, there's a subset of people who codify that thing and they make rules around that thing. And then they get upset if that thing doesn't follow the imaginary rules they made up for it.
Mhm.
And so one time I did a flying squirrel because I thought it would be really funny. And I thought it would needle the people who are a little overly serious about it. The same people who are upset if, for instance, there's a comic that does not have a swear word in it. And people were so upset by that squirrel that I did the crab cartoon because I did this crab and it says, "Look, asshole, I don't have time to explain." And it's every time anybody complained about it, I just replied, "Look, asshole, I don't have time to explain."
So so when you're presenting this
Yeah.
that first time and they're looking at this, did you get like it was like deer in the headlight looks from everybody who's going, "Are you
Oh,
really want to put this out?"
I was rejected by every publisher. I did not actually get a Canadian book deal until I had a British book deal and an American book deal.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Nobody was interested in touching it. I had given up on the idea of a book, and then I was approached by a British publisher. And they were super into it, and they had a model that at the time was exactly right for me because I was doing well on the internet. Their model is you crowdfund the print run of the book through pre-orders. And so the idea was we put together a package for what it would cost us, what it would cost to do all the parts of the book, including the print run and editorial and making sure everybody got paid. And then that's the crowdfund figure. That's 100%. Every dollar past that 100%, we split 50-50.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
really what we wanted to do was do like 200%, 300%, because that's profit for everybody.
Yeah.
We did 300%, 320
Amazing.
or 330% on that book, on the crowdfund part of it. But then once we had a successful crowdfund, the publishers that I had pitched to came back around because they were like,
Okay.
"Oh, it looks like actually that you've sold a lot of this book just
Right.
in English." And it's like, "Yep, yes, we have." And that's actually where that was my departure at my old job because Penguin Random House, 10 Speed Press, which is the home of Effin Birds in the US. They're a Penguin Random House imprint, and they offered about 6 months of my salary as an advance for the American rights.
Wow.
And we looked at that, and I was like, well, I can find a new job in 6 months if I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
My employer got really itchy about it. They said, if you're with a major publisher, we're going to consider it a conflict of interest because your book is going to be available on the iBooks store on the iPad.
Right.
And I tried to argue that we had a whole internal portal where we celebrated employees who had music on Apple Music, but they weren't going for it. And so I was like, okay, well, I think they really expected me to back out of my book deal because that's what they were like. They were like, oh yeah, you got to back out of this book deal. And that was a Wednesday morning, and I didn't work there anymore by Friday. So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah.
So
Turns out
did
if you
you-
work at Apple for 11 years and you're really funny on the internet, you can find a job.
That's
Like,
it's good to know. It's good to know. And all from stemming from that just animosity, but the beak in those eyes, right?
yeah,
Like that's
literally, if I didn't open that spam email, I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm here today. I might still be working.
that's
So,
awesome.
So did you have a hand in like doing the whole design, the layout and everything? Because I'm really curious. You have some fantastic stuff, and then you get to a point where it's color and it's like glossy pages, and it's
Oh, yeah.
so you had a hand in doing all of that.
So they pitched to me because at the time the comic had been mostly black and white with the occasional color comic. And they pitched to me a 200-ish page book with 2 sections of color plates was like their pitch. And my initial design idea is I love Thomas Bewick's History of British Birds. That's a book that I have been referring to over and over and over again since I started doing this. Not just because the illustrations, the woodcuts in it are magnificent, but also because he's a grumpy, grumpy man who hates the modern world and somehow manages to communicate that while writing about birds. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, let me just do the 2017 version of that, the 2018 version of that. But also I loved the layouts of that book. Like I thought it just looked gorgeous. And if you take that part of it, if you take the layouts, because the whole joke of Effin Birds is it looks serious and then it's not when you read what it says. And
Yeah.
so you can make the layout serious. The easiest way to make the layout serious is to go find somebody else's serious layout, look at what makes it serious, and just take that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Thomas Buick. Many thanks, Thomas Buick.
Yeah, well, this is easily like a parlor, like like if I were to go to like a very nice house, not mine, but if I were to go to like an elder relative, and if I were to
coffee
see
book
that
table.
on the table, and I wouldn't think twice. I'd be like, oh, there's you love birds, but then that's it,
So,
and then you're sucked in, right?
yeah, that's it. Well, and that's why it sells really well. I am forever indebted to the original cover designer Meekob in the UK, and then the team at 10 Speed who did the redesign for North America. Because the cover's great, the cover gets you in.
Yep.
But also, if you look at the back cover, you should read that blurb that I got from Jodie Sweetin from Full House.
Oh, no way.
So it says, quote, "This book can hide in plain sight on your coffee table, simultaneously impressing your parents with your knowledge of avian breeds and offending them with your love of profanity."
There you go.
But did you read the one underneath it?
From Jonathan K. Says, "The idea of combining a pic of a bird with some lazy half obscenity is really something that would barely amuse elementary school kids. Very sad and contrived."
That's just as awesome.
Yeah, I think the best part of that is that first of all, we credit him as Jonathan K. Serious Adult, which upset him greatly.
Right.
Like, I think that the thing that he gets with that is that he nails what the comic is, and he does a very good description of it while saying, "Oh, this is not for me." And anybody who reads that and says, "Yeah, but that sounds like it's awesome,"
Perfect.
is
Yeah.
completely on board.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funniest thing is, so since I've had this, I would leave it on my counter at home, and we'd have friends over or whatever. They're looking at it and they're like, "You're into birds?" And I was like, "Yes, at the moment I am." And I let them go through it, and I just watch the facial reactions. And some of them are just like they're like, "What is this?" And they keep going. I'm like, "Well, all right, now you're into it."
Now you're here. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. And the layout continues on. Like it's a serious book. It's you want to keep going. Yeah.
Also an open it to any page and it should be able to get you kind of book, which is
Yeah.
that was one of my fundamental bookstore experiences was I went into it was a WH Smith. It was across from where I worked when I was a teenager. And I went into the weird comedy section, which was my favorite section. And one time I picked up off of the shelf a book called The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales by John Seiska and Lane Smith. I cannot more highly recommend this fake children's book. It is very funny. But I opened it to a random page and I laughed so hard that I had to sit on the ground because I was wheezing. And I was like, I just need to do that to somebody else. Like I desperately, desperately need to do that to somebody else. And so, I mean, now I get to do that and it kind of rules.
So how was it then, when you're going to these conventions and you're selling? I mean, when you first started it, were you nervous in the first ones? Because I think you said San Diego, you are now at a point where you annoy all the tables around you.
Yes. You have to be friends with the people who are near you, because I will sometimes have a line and that will disrupt business around me if I don't take care of it well. And so you got to be pals. I don't think the guys who were authenticating stuff at the table behind us like this at all, because it's sort of the way that we had built it. If the lineup got out of control, it would end up in front of their table. And we tried really hard to not let it get out of control, but it happens sometimes. I signed over 2,000 items at that show, which is the show's only 41 hours long, including VIP hours. So that's something every 70 seconds. And
Holy cow.
that's not a lot of time to talk to a person or do anything else. Like it's literally like hey, how's it going? Quick piece of banter. Okay, I signed it. And if you try to slow down a little bit, you get the authentication people angry. So
Right.
So it must be kind of nice then when you come to like the smaller shows, say for with Freddie Beach, for instance, where you
Oh, yeah.
actually you can
Well, just
have the
talk-
conversations with people. Like we were there probably for a good 30 minutes chatting with you the first time. And then the same thing when I went back on the Sunday. I mean, it was steady in there. And I mean, if there were people there, I just backed away and let them
Yeah.
talk to you.
it was relaxed. It was great.
Yeah.
You kind of have to do both shows, because the thing about a show like San Diego is it generates a lot of money, but at the same time, it costs so much money to do. That's the one show where I pay for my table. I don't
Okay.
pay for the table. I get there's a company called Nerd Street, and they run cons of their own. I appear at some of their shows. And they always have a table at San Diego Comic Con. And what they would regularly do is they would get the rights to a Power Rangers comic, do an exclusive cover for that comic just for San Diego Comic Con, and then bring in a Power Ranger to sign. Right. And then they'd sell the exclusive and they'd sign it. And one year they asked if I wanted to take over half of their booth to do Effin Birds stuff. And we made so much money that I've taken it over for the last 3 years.
Wow.
But the tricky part is like the booth costs like $4,000 American dollars. To do that much in terms of sales, you need at least 3 people working with you. So suddenly you have 4 flights and 4 hotel rooms, and
Right.
there are ways to do it cheaper, but it's the show where I generate the most revenue, but it's not the show where I make the most money, not by a long shot. There's 4 or 5 shows that, because they cost so much less to do or don't cost anything to do, that I make a lot more money at them. And that's sort of like the thing with cons is you've got to build a schedule that's balanced for yourself so that you earn money, don't hate it,
Yeah.
are continuing to build audience, because really that is a lot of it. Like you got to go to a new place to get your book into the hands of new people, especially as social media gets harder and harder to get traction on these days. Again, we're sort of like we're at the bottom part of the wave. We'll be back at the top maybe at some point, who knows? But right now, in person is way more successful than online. Yeah, you just have to like not hate it. Right. So you have to make sure that you're getting what you need out of these. And I mean, I thrive on validation. So I like talking to people who think I'm great, like that.
Of course.
So something you just said then that I want to touch on, which I find it interesting, is would you have had the success that you're having with this now 20 years ago, let's say comparative to the 2000 Blue Jays type thing, right? Like where social media plays a big plays a big part of the success for you.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is I don't think I could have launched the comic at all pre-social media, because no one was gonna run that comic in a newspaper, maybe an alt weekly. Like I used to do I was on the newspaper staff. I did comics for my high school newspaper. When the high school newspaper had like its huge like drama, a bunch of school drama. But anyways, we started an underground newspaper that we distributed at the convenience store at the end of the block. We started our, offshoot newspaper, and I did comics for that. And the thing was, once I didn't have that, once I was at college and I didn't join the newspaper staff, there was suddenly no way to get anybody to look at anything I did like that, And so social media coming around and making it like just possible to find an audience without having another gatekeeper involved was kind of amazing. And I mean, and the thing is, today we still have gatekeepers involved. They're just now there are algorithmic gatekeepers or whatever, and that's everybody's trying to figure out, what the algorithm does now. But yeah, I don't think that. I think without the timing of when I did it, it wouldn't have happened the way it did. It's possible that I could have written this book, but I don't think I would have written this book if I didn't have a year worth of comics to bundle together into this book to write a book framework around, and also have an audience already, because nobody's going to get this book without there being an audience for it, as proven by the fact that nobody wanted it until we crowdfunded like a huge number for the book. And then and I think actually the funniest part of that crowdfund is that the US edition came out before the crowdfunded British copy of the book came out.
Oh, really?
And people were a little mad about it. And I was like, I was like, yeah, but you made this book happen. Like
Yeah.
without you, there's no book. You know,
Right.
that's why your name is in the back of all the British copies because you made this book happen. You know, like that was the only way to sort of take the sting off of it a little bit.
Hey, this is Jamie,
And this is Ryan.
and we're the Recap Sequence.
Be sure to tune in to us every Wednesday night on CHSR 97.9 FM or online at chsrfm.ca at 7 p.m. Atlantic, 6 p.m. Eastern.
And if you don't catch us live, you can catch our podcast on Spotify, on Amazon, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And we also have a YouTube channel you may have been watching. And if not, you should be. Catch us on YouTube at Recap Sequence. So
And subscribe.
subscribe. Yeah, please.
So if we go to a convention, we run into you as we
Yeah.
did at Freddie Beach. You had plenty of these books available.
Yep.
But that wasn't the only stuff that
Yeah.
your table was loaded with Effin Birds merch.
It was a good time, yeah.
You had
Oh.
the Eat Farts shirt, which was, did you design that?
I did.
Brilliantly designed, by the way. Can you, because we don't have one, but could you give a description?
Sure. It's a Hawaiian shirt with a beautiful seascape on it and all these little ducks that are flying away from you. And then in little letters in between some of the ducks, it says "Eat farts."
And where are they
perfect.
located? If we were to do a Zoom meeting, we couldn't see them
yeah,
right
that's
now.
one of the best parts is they're all the ducks are below nipple level. So you don't see you see ducks, but you don't see the words "eat farts"
Got it. Yeah.
unless the camera goes down, just a little bit below the pocket.
So, and I assume this was a deliberate
A
decision
deliberate design
from because I mean, would this have been a design that was done during the kind of the boom in Zoom and working remotely and
I mean, like that's part of the ascension of Effin Birds. Like I did really well because I was helping people deal with a lot of complicated emotions during that whole
right.
and part of that is just me. All I have to do, and it's so weird to understand how my own comic works, but really it's me just expressing a negative emotion so that other people can say, "Oh, I have that emotion too."
Yeah.
Funny.
What
But
else do we find on your table?
I have a beautiful new double deck of playing cards from my American publisher. That's actually was a second book in the UK, but because of COVID, they couldn't match the street date in the United States, and then they were having trouble. They're having technical trouble producing the book in the same way because in the UK it's a book of 100 tear out postcards. So it's like
Okay. Yeah.
together and you peel them off, right? And there's apparently only one printer in the world that can do it, and it's in the Czech Republic. And we used like all of their press time for like 4 months. And so my American publisher was like, "Well, that's not going to work for us." And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to fix it or make it work because the book was out in the UK, and so people who wanted it in the United States were importing copies.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so, like, I mean, Amazon started bringing copies in. So at that point, it was like, okay, well, let's figure out a way to do this 100% legit so that everybody's getting paid just right, but also something to satisfy the part of this contract where Penguin Random House has the second book, and here it is, but they're not selling it. But because also I had to get out from under that contract because until I had that second book come out, I couldn't do another book anywhere else. So I spent like a year and a half of my life trying to sort that out.
Right.
But we did end up when you have 100 postcards, you can chop that up into a double deck of playing cards real easy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so on the fronts of the cards now, like the backs are all a beautiful owl illustration, and the fronts are 76 different comics across the two decks.
Cool.
Wow.
Okay.
That's incredible. Now,
You can find those in your local bookstore. Those are out there.
Right on.
check. Maybe it's part of the Amazon Prime days.
It is. It is.
Is it really?
Yeah, but don't. Support your
Okay.
local store.
Yeah.
Always. Always.
I was about to say it's today and tomorrow, but it's not. It's not. By the time this airs, it's done. It's over, and you missed the boat. And
Go to your local bookstore.
It's just a gimmick.
During the last Prime days, I made a tote bag with a little bird on it that said Jeff Bezos can eat my nuts. And I said, use one of these when you go shop at a real store.
Nice.
And
Oh my gosh.
I did get that letter from somebody at Amazon.
One of the other items you have at your table, and I purchased it as a Christmas gift for my wife, which she won't listen to this show today, so she won't. It's fine. But it is your 2025 calendar.
Yes. Yeah.
And
calendars.
He has seen it. I know you have, because you wrote something on her
I know
birthday,
what you said.
and
Yeah.
you wrote something nasty about me on my birthday that I have no idea.
It was
And she-
observant. It wasn't.
Oh, observant. Okay. And the best part is I'm telling her that this is something she has to bring to her for work. She is a veterinary technician
Yep.
in a vet animal hospital, so it will be just perfect on her desk as the hospital manager. So I look forward to her birthday and mine to see what you wrote. But yeah, your calendars, it's a brilliant idea.
Oh, thanks. That's again, Andrews McMeel, the calendar publisher, came to me, and it was just beautiful. It was such a beautiful little combination, because the first year we did them, we did planners and a wall calendar, and those were good. But the second year that we did them, when we did the page a day calendar, was like, yeah, that is the right format for this, because that's what I was aiming for anyways. Part of the whole idea of this comic is to have a single panel comic, because it's so adaptable to anything else. You can put a single panel comic, like my big inspiration was the Far Side, because when you have a Far Side comic that you like, you can wear it on a shirt, and you can buy it on a mug, and it can be a page in a book, and it can be, it can be all these things. And the Far Side page a day calendar was, well, one of my favorite things that I ever owned. I had that every year for like 5 straight years, and I loved it. If you go to my parents' house, I was there recently, and I opened a closet door to look for something, and taped to the back of the closet door was a comic from the page a day that had been torn out. And I was like, I put that up there in 1993. And it's still funny.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that, like, it really, the comic works really well as a page a day calendar. And part of it being Prime Days was I started a marketing push for calendars yesterday, but my own website, because Barnes and Noble bought so many of the calendars from the print run this year, like so many that I am having trouble getting calendars for my own shows, which is a great position to be in.
Sure.
And we actually did a second print run of 2 of the formats, which just dropped. So now I have copies for shows for my last 2 shows of the year. But I was yesterday, when I looked at the charts, I was the number 2 best-selling calendar.
Wow.
I was only being outsold by the Jeopardy calendar, where off every day with a new Jeopardy clue. And I was like, you know what? I accept that. Jeopardy than me. Like,
it makes great gifts. I mean, all the merch makes for great gifts, but a calendar, page a day calendar, that's for me, like, and the timing's good. It's fall. You want to get your 2025 calendar.
It is the marketing time. I actually have a special page on my website with links to dozens of bookstores that are selling it online. It is Eat Fart with a dot between the F and the art. So it is eat art. That's awesome. I'm really good at URLs.
Yeah.
That'll be at the bottom of our ticker, right?
Yeah. It went like this.
Yeah.
If I did this right. Yeah, we'll see it. That's awesome.
So are you already working on 2026 then, calendar?
It's through editorial. I approved the
all
the editorial a couple weeks ago. I'm working on 2027 right now.
Holy
yeah, because it's like literally I did all day before this call art prep for the 2027 comics. So
wow. So do you have days where this is, it's not an unlimited well, I'm sure, every day to come up with the ideas for do you struggle, or do you have bursts where it's like, here I got like 2 weeks covered here now? Or
there's 2 things that I do. One is that I treat it like a job, and you've had a day at your job where you didn't want to go to work, and you did
today actually.
There you go. And did you go to work?
No, I did. I had to.
Yeah. See, that's it. You went to work.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You went to work. And did anybody really know that you didn't want to be there?
No. I might have told somebody, but yeah. Otherwise, for the most part, no. I'm my usual self at work. Yeah.
You faked it.
Yep.
You did the job like a grown up, because that's what we do as grown up.
Yep.
You know what? Turns out I can do that writing comics.
That's amazing.
I'll be miserable the whole time. I'll be, I don't do this, and I'll be and then a couple days later, I'll go look at them, and I'm like, you know what? These are all good.
Awesome.
It was just me. It wasn't the work. It was just me. But the other thing that I do is, so that I don't burn myself out, is I separate. I have 3 kinds of days. I have days where I'm doing art prep. I have days where I'm writing jokes, and I have days where I'm managing files, which is like a nasty, horrible part of this whole process. But part
Mhm.
of that is scheduling comics to social media and to the web, and part of that is making sure all the pieces are in the right places for the publisher so that they have their boxes of here's the big art, here are all the assembled pieces for the art, here's all the fonts, here's all the things you need to recreate them from scratch should that be needed. And so yeah, those are my three kinds of days. And I usually like four of the days are either working on art or working on jokes, and one of the days is usually working on scheduling and like maintenance and whatever.
Right.
And then sometimes it's a day of like, I don't know, maybe there's always a little bit of every day that's about social media, which is kind of depressing. But like, if you don't go in and reply to people, nobody sees you.
Yes.
So you gotta mark some time for doing that every day.
Yeah.
So when you go to a con, that's
Yeah.
interrupting your schedule, so to speak.
Yeah.
Are you still working when you're at the con? Because we see when we go around, a lot of the artists are working on sketches or stuff, commissions at times.
Yep.
But then there's also some who are working on actual books that they've got deadlines to meet as well. So, like, do you impose deadlines on yourself for things?
I try not to do work at cons because I'm usually busy at cons. And I think that if I was like, I know guys who get up at 3 in the morning to complete commissions and then
Oh,
get them to the show. And I'm just like, I can't be that guy. I would die. I can't do it. And so I don't usually do work at shows. That said, if I know the show is going to be a little slower, I bring something that I can work on just in case it's real slow. And not that Freddie Beach was slow, but it was slow enough and it was mellow enough that I actually completed a big piece of work at the show. I finished a cover. I finished the pencils for a cover that I did for a comic called Sweet Paprika. Do you guys know that comic? It's an image
no,
book.
it's an interesting title though.
Yeah. No, I'm not familiar with it.
It's a real good time. So the original Sweet Paprika is an Italian smutty romantic comedy book in a world of angels and demons, and at a publishing company run by a demon. um, and it's delightful. And this book is Sweet Paprika Open for Business, which is I don't know if you guys know the writer Steve Orlando, but this is
Yep.
his spin-off book that he's
Cool.
doing. And I met him at Fan Expo Boston, and we had a real good conversation. And he asked if I would want to contribute a cover for Open for Business, and I did. And it was really funny. We just kept going back and forth with the publisher and the editor about the what's going to be on this cover and how weird can it be. And at one point, I wanted to make this doofus looking llama, and the editor, no, the publisher was like, he was like, I don't know, but what is this llama? I was like, nothing. The llama's just funny. He's just there because he's funny. And so, anyways, when we finally agreed on what it would be, I did like 4 or 5 iterations of it because we were trying to figure out the right dog, because I'm doing this more realistic version of a dog that's a character in the book. But the dog in the book looks like a beanbag with an egg on his head. Like he's like a little, he's a dog, he's a comic dog, he's
Sure.
not a dog. But in the artist's mind, this dog has a specific breed. And so when I provide a boxer as that dog, we're just like, nah, Bean's not a boxer. I'm like, but look at his ears. He's got boxer's ears. That's why he's a boxer. And it's like, no, he's not. He's a Dashin. So I was like, okay. And so at Freddie Beach, I don't know if you saw, a whole bunch of times I was doodling this Dashin, and I ended up doing what proved to be the final pencils for that Dashin
Wow.
at the table, and dropped him back into the rest of the artwork. So that was a good time.
So when has this cover come out, or is it?
No, I gave it to them. We finished the colors like a week ago, maybe.
Cool.
I have
Okay.
absolutely no idea what the release date is on it, or even what issue it's going to be. All I know is it's one of the issues.
Still fun, and I mean, cool to kind of do a crossover
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
with
and
another artist.
and it was fun because at first I was like, why me for this? But then I was like, oh no, wait, this is a smutty romantic comedy, and my like primary readership demographic is women aged 39 to 55, which is also the general demographic for a smutty romantic comedy comic. So it turns out that they were very smart. Audience cross-pollination. That's what we're doing.
I love that I fall into the female 39 to 55 demographic myself, actually.
You know what?
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great place.
So
Oh, can I say,
listen,
by the way, something
Yeah.
really great that happened at Freddie Beach.
Yeah.
sure.
I had met Sandy Carruthers at a previous at the Fredericton Inn version of this
Yeah.
show.
Right.
But I got to spend some time with him at this show, and we ended up talking about projects we're working on, and it looks like we're going to do something together.
Nice.
Great. Yeah. So
Sandy's awesome.
Yeah.
He's great to work with. He does some collaborations with a lot of the Maritime folks here,
And he launched his comic that weekend as well.
Dark Coast.
Dark
Yeah.
Coast, yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's
Oh,
got
that's awesome. Well, you'll have to we'll have to give Sandy a hard time for not telling us this.
He did
You know,
mention
that's
it, but-
just
Well, I
wrong.
think that the thing is, we're at this place where my publisher has to say they have like artist approval, and they have to say,
Gotcha.
"Oh yeah, we like him." And so Sandy's doing some test pages, but for Sandy to do the test pages, I have to finish the scripts for the test pages.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I just had to finish all of my comics for 2026. So I was like, go on the back burner for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sandy's he just got an award, didn't he?
He won an award back in June for another
it-
book that he worked on.
Wasn't Dark Coast. It was
No.
Dark something else though. It was anyway. He's into the dark stuff now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
He's like such a great thematic fit for it, because it's like a lot of things I do. It's something that's funny because I take it much, much, much too seriously. And he is very good at deadpan horror.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and so
Dark Sanctuary, if you haven't read it,
That was it. Dark Sanctuary.
really good.
That's
Yeah.
the other one.
there you go. I have not read it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
He's,
good.
he's
Yeah.
a former teacher, isn't he?
Yes, he is, yeah.
Retired teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, tell us about Space Werewolf, please.
Oh, so that's the project.
Oh,
So,
okay.
So, Space Werewolf is a comic about a failed Soviet moon mission that would have beaten the Americans to the moon, but they had to cover it up because one of the crew was a werewolf, and they did not recognize that it's always full moon on the moon.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
It's so it's such a dumb idea. And I have not only taken it very seriously, but I've given it some genuine emotional stakes, which has really surprised me that I was able to do it. But I almost made one of my editors cry when I pitched one of the big emotional beats. And I was like, oh, I've like nailed this. I've really nailed this. And it was the most thrilling pitch, because seeing someone like their eyes start to well up with tears when you pitch them something in a thing called Space Werewolf. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I have done it. And so I feel really good about it. It's all outlined. It's all like, I have most of the scenes broken down the way I want them to go. I know everything that happens in it. I just have to write the whole thing now. And that's just a question of having some time to do it.
Right.
I tried to
So
actually
you have all your regular work, and then you have all your side projects on top of things.
daily comic, right? A daily comic, and then being on social media to make sure people read the daily comic. Like that there is a full-time job on it.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that there was a time where I worked a 40-hour job and did the comic? I did that. I did that for 2
Wow.
years. And the only reason I stopped is because they got uncomfortable with it. And then I did take the job that I took after that. I took a 3-day-a-week job, because my idea was, okay, well, I'll do this job 3 days a week, and I'll try to do the comic 2 days a week and give myself back a weekend. And it mostly worked. It was more like 3 and 3 and 1. And then eventually I jettisoned that job as well. And now I only work on the comic. So in theory, I should have time to write some other things. It's just that something always comes up. So here's the thing. I got in a place where I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write this. And then I had another idea that I had to just write down all the parts of, because it was really good. And I was like, no, I want to do this other thing. Oh, but I have to write this down because I'll lose it if I don't. And so, so I did. And so I have 2 other things to write after Space Werewolf, but Space Werewolf is the one that my publisher likes best. And so that is the one that theoretically will be the one. So,
Right.
When this happens, you have to let us know, because
I
we
was
want you back
yeah,
on.
Yeah.
And we'll,
Absolutely.
and if you get Sandy on with it, we'll get you both on at the same time.
Well, I think one of the
And,
advantages of like not only is Sandy a great artist and a great person to work with, he's also Canadian, and it means that we can pull that whole press cycle of like, here's a Canadian thing that
Mhm.
Yeah.
that a Canadian publisher turned down and an American publisher picked up because that's always
It's
the
great.
story.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
hate our own things up here, so like
And
literally one of the other projects that I have was a TV pitch. Because I got all the stuff with Canadian tax credits. If you have a Canadian writer and a Canadian director, you can get a huge, huge tax credit for funding a season of television or something like that. And then there's going to be somebody who has to buy it because one of the streamers will need to fulfill their Canadian content
yeah.
percentage. So
Yeah.
someone will buy it. And so there's this whole racket around making Canadian TV shows that nobody sees, right?
Wow. Okay.
Like everybody gets paid. Everybody
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
paid a very good rate, but nobody sees it. It all ends up like on Amazon Prime at the bottom of the bucket because
Mhm.
nobody knows it's there. And so I had written something that I thought was really good and would make a really great 1980s style action comedy TV series. And then I was like, I don't want nobody to see this. I want everybody to see this. And so they hadn't paid me any money yet. So I took it back. And we're going to do it hopefully as a comic. Because I have it all broken down for TV, I think what I'm going to end up doing is have a co-writer write the scripts for the comic because
Right.
it's all built there. And I feel a little bit like James Patterson, the mystery writer who like doesn't write half of his own books. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, all the ideas and here's how it goes. Okay, you finish it. And I was like, am I that guy? I'm just the Bird Comics guy. But you know what? There's only so many hours in the day, and if having somebody else work on it and we're there as co-writers
Yeah.
gets it made, then it gets made, right? And that's better than not getting made. So maybe that's the way I do these things. I don't know.
Look. That's great. We don't want to burn yourself out either, right? Like, there are a lot of people that want to that can do it all, but should you do it all? I guess I see that with a lot of musician. I have a lot of musician friends that just want to singer songwriter, and just, you're really good at all of it, but
Yeah,
you could just kind of focus on one part and enjoy the ride. So,
right.
like that, that's what and I've had that explained to me a few times too. I get very kind of, possessive about things like the radio show, stuff like
Yeah,
that. It's like, shouldn't,
right.
let other
But it's
people
a
do
little
some
bit.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
friend of mine who writes 3 novels a year. 3 novels a year. I'm like, how does
Yeah.
your brain do that? Like, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm just barely keeping up with a daily comic strip. Like,
Well, you're doing a fantastic job,
Yeah.
obviously. What are we at? Like, it's, 7 years now
yeah.
of Effin Birds. So,
What's hilarious is it's going to get to 10 years because contractually I'm through 9.5. So like with what I've
holy cow.
Wow.
delivered, I've delivered well into 2026. Like I've delivered all the comics to the end of 2026, and June 2027 is the 10th anniversary. So the comics I'm writing now, all I got to do is write about 150 comics and then I'm at 10 years,
Wow.
which
Will
is
we get a volume 2?
Yeah, are you still doing birds? Like, are you looking to keep going with the birds, or?
yeah, oh yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna do the birds as long as the birds pay money, you know. And what
Yeah.
happens is every year I do calendars, and that's the primary output. And we looked at collecting things into a book, but having the time to also write all the framing material around to make it a satisfying book again is it's hard to find that time. And I did do that for the second book that came out in the UK that's called Greetings from Effin Birds. But that got turned into that playing cards in the United States. So in theory, that's the North American version of the second book is the double deck of playing cards. But
Right.
you should be able to like if you can look on Indigo can get you a copy of Greetings from Effin Birds. I don't think they keep it in stores, but they'll order it for you, and that's a good book. I like it. I'm
This
happy.
this is just such a riot
Oh, thank you.
to be able to read this. I mean, I wish I could take half of, we could share half of what's in here right now, but you'd be spending all night bleeping
Uh,
out stuff. But like Overbearing Heron, another one
yeah,
that's that I like. But
I
it's
they're all those are all just think about they're all real people that I know. Every one of those. Uh, there's a comic in there that describes a meeting that would happen at 3 o'clock every Friday. That was the standing meeting that I would call at Apple. So it's a true story, a real thing that happened. I met somebody who I hadn't seen in a long time who works for Apple still, who I met him at San Diego because he's working for Apple in Cupertino corporate now, and he said that he still calls that meeting. So I was like, oh yeah,
Wow. Wow.
In
So
fact, I've made my dent in the universe. There we go.
has anybody figured out that they may be captured in the book, or has anybody figured out somebody that they know that you know, and it's like, oh, that's got to be so and so.
My old manager was like, Aaron, am I this? Yes. Like, oh, okay.
That's gonna be in the book. It'd be, I don't know.
There are people in here that I'm going, I know who these people are
Yeah,
right away, and it's just exactly like that. So
they're all like everybody works with terrible humans, so that's what makes it so relatable. Is you just say, hey, here's some terrible humans. I don't like them. You know?
So you've got the books, you've got a slew of merch on your website, and that everything from mugs to wearables,
you have pins as well, I think, didn't
pins,
you?
stickers.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things with online commerce has been that while things like mugs, t-shirts, stuff that you can print on demand, you print it when somebody orders it, easy peasy, profitable, workable. Selling stuff that I have to order 1,000 of them and then keep them somewhere and then pay a person to put them into envelopes and then ship them just does not work no matter what we do. So going forwards, the pins and the patches and stuff like that are just going to be at my appearances.
Okay.
The stuff that we can do on demand, it's on the website. Everything else, like I think I actually lost money on selling Hawaiian shirts and pins last year online. Made lots of money selling them in person, lost money selling them online. And I sell them online for like 20% more than I sell them for in person. And I charge for the shipping. And it still costs more to warehouse them and to have a person put them in envelopes and all that kind of stuff. And so,
but there's a big difference though, looking at it online and actually seeing the shirt in face to face, at in person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of, they really get you in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I do. If people are listening to this, where can they find you, follow you, everything they want to know about you and the birds?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is if you go to effinbirds.com, that is my store, but on the front page, there's a thing that says meet the author, and it has my appearance schedule. There's a thing that says read the comic, and when you click on that, there's something like 18 platforms that I'm on now. If they let you schedule, I'm on them. That's kind of how it goes. If I can plug them into a service I already have and just make it work, I've done it. And so I am on all the platforms. I am at Effin Birds, like everywhere. But I mean, I add more all the time. And, so it's easiest just to go to effinbirds.com. And you can also, on effinbirds.com, there is also today's comic, like on the Read the Comic page. So you don't have to be on social media. In fact, I have a phone service now. If you want the comic texted to you every day instead of you have to go to social media, you don't want all that other garbage with it. You can send a text to 845 eat fart. And this is 100% real. 845 eat fart. Send a text to it, and you'll get a text back telling you how to sign up.
Well, I know what I'm doing as soon as we're done. I know exactly what I'm doing. Thank you.
That is
Thank
hilarious.
That's amazing.
You could do? You should call it and hear the voicemail that I left. I couldn't remember. I remember that I had done a voicemail for it, but I couldn't remember what I said. So I called it the other day, and I made myself laugh really hard. And I think that's a great gift to myself, is that if I can make myself laugh because I've forgotten what the joke was, it was a good joke.
I should do it while I'm in the car driving the kids to school tomorrow. I'll just do it from the
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'll get my 10-year-old to dial. She'll love it. She's a eat fart. Okay.
Last thing, Aaron, do you want to know the score?
Yeah, what's the score?
Final. New York 7, Philly 2.
The buffer worked.
The buffer worked.
Yep, that's right. It worked.
Look, Aaron, this was a lot of fun. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us tonight. Looking forward to seeing what else you got coming.
Yeah.
Very much looking forward to Space Werewolf. That sounds like a whole lot of fun. And
thank you for doing this. This was wicked.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. It was a good time.
Cool.
And I met you guys in Fredericton.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. We had a great chat with you, and really appreciate you doing. Thank you for being so patient with us to be rescheduling everything. So
Yeah, I apologize
It's
for
not you, it's me. Like I'm always rescheduling everything. I missed a podcast recording last week because I somehow didn't get it onto my schedule, and instead I was at an opera, and my phone is buzzing in my pocket over and over again during the opera, and I'm like, what have I forgotten about? And so on information, I was like, oh shit. Sorry, Andrew, that I'm
there's another bird comic right there.
Yeah, operas are tragic in many ways. So that was
yeah. This one was a funny one though. So
oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Have an awesome rest of the night. Go Mets, and we'll keep an eye on everything. I have a text to send here shortly. So
awesome.
excellent.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Take care.
You.